Great. Hi, everybody. Welcome in. Thank you for joining me. I'm really excited to introduce you to how to turn a square of fabric into a fabric basket. Now, you can take this workshop as your launching point and see what else you can make. Now, we do have a couple of poll questions as you're coming in and getting settled. So I can't read it. My monitor is too far away. Do you mind reading the question out?
Sure thing. How would you describe your comfort level approaching a new sewing technique? I feel confident, I feel excited, or I feel scared.
Great. I'm seeing that confident line go up, so that's great to see. Let's give that a couple more seconds. All right. So that's great to see that everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people in the class today feel comfortable and confident approaching a new sewing project. And that's really great to see. I think starting off a new project can be a little intimidating. So hopefully this workshop will help calm some of those nerves. Now, our second question is, will you be watching today or will you be sewing along with me? This will give me a good idea to know how to pace the class if you're watching and if you're sewing along with me. So good, I see a lot of you are watching and we've got some of you are sewing along with me. That's excellent. And feel free as we're working along, whether you're watching or you're sewing, you can ask questions in the Q&A section. So any question you have, go ahead and type it in there and then we'll get those read aloud so I can answer those as we're moving along the class. So why don't we go ahead and get started? The first thing is obviously always to gather your materials. And I have a couple of materials out on my desk here to work with. So the first thing is your fabric. Now I'll be using two different fabrics, one for the lining and one for the outer shell of my basket. They're both 100% cotton. I have washed them already. But for something like this, a home decor item, it's not super important that you have to wash it. But I do like to go ahead and throw those fabrics into the washing machine and get that out of the way before I start sewing with them. The other item you need, and yours may be in a little package like this, is Heat and Bond Fusible interfacing. Now, interfacing comes in a lot of different varieties and weights and types. So there are different types. There's sew-in interfacing, iron-on interfacing. There is double-sided iron-on interfacing. The interfacing you want to work with today, you'll notice one side of it will be shiny and the other side of it will be dull. The shiny side is what we'll use to iron onto the interfacing onto our fabric, which will give your basket some stability. Now you can choose all different types of interfacing. You could use fleece interfacing that has iron-on material on it, which would give your basket like an extra little puff to it. So that type of interfacing is available. For the class today, I'm just going to be using a standard medium to heavyweight interfacing, which will give my basket a bit of stability, but it won't make it super hard. So I can kind of it'll still be mushy, but it won't be super hard. The other materials I'll be working with today are my scissors as well as my rotary cutter, and I don't see my acrylic ruler. I'll be using an acrylic ruler to measure out my fabric. I do like to have a pair of thread snips. You could do something like this, so it's just snips like that, super easy, or just a small pair of Fisker scissors like this to snip your threads. I like to have a sewing gauge, and this is so that I can see, like we're going to turn over the top of our basket here. And when you do that, it's kind of nice to make sure that you get the same measurement across. So the sewing gauge is super handy. We'll also be needing some chalk or marking tools to mark a bit of our pattern. The great thing about this project is it's so interchangeable that you can, we'll start off with one size, but as you can see, I've made a smaller basket just by altering my pattern a little bit. I also do have my handy dandy seam ripper because you'll always need to have that close by, as well as my thread and my bobbin. And then I have straight pins and wonder clips. If you are an old school seamstress, you may not have ever used wonder clips. It takes a little bit of getting used to it from going from pin to clip, but these are so easy, and it's great to have a little dish of those by the project. So that's everything we need to get started. I'm going to just, and your iron, of course, don't forget your iron. And I need my acrylic ruler. I set that aside. So now any acrylic ruler will work. You could use a metal ruler, a plastic ruler. I like these thicker, heavier. These are like a 1/4 inch or maybe 1/8 of an inch of what is this? Acrylic. And it's nice when you're using your rotary cutter because you can get right along the edge there. So that's super good to have. Okay, if there are any questions about the materials, go ahead and hit those up for us so we can see how many of you, if anybody has any questions as we're moving along. If you don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and get started. Now, I am going to use my overhead camera so you get a top-down look, but so why don't we go ahead and switch over to that camera. Just give me 1 second to make sure I get it all set up for you. We'll just switch over to that camera. Can you switch that camera lens? Awesome. Thank you. There we go. Okay. So from here, you can see I've got my cutting mat out. Now, if you're just using a ruler and marking tools, you don't need to have a whole mat to cut with, but I really like to use a self-healing mat, especially with my rotary cutter, so it does make it a bit easier. Now, when we get started, the first thing you're going to want to do is grab your fabric, and we're going to iron out any wrinkles in our fabric. So I've got my iron here. I'm going to get that turned on, and I need my little mat. I thought I had everything pulled out, but I'm missing one little, my mat to iron on. Wouldn't you know? Okay. So if I were doing this in my normal space, of course I would use my ironing board, but I just have a little mat here that I can use to iron on. So the first thing we're going to do is just take your fabric, and since if you're using a high cotton count fabric, you want to have your iron on the highest setting and go ahead and use some steam with your ironing out your wrinkles. And we're just going to go along our fabric here and iron out any wrinkles. Now, we're only going to need about a 10-inch by 20-inch amount of fabric to make our basket. So like if you have a fat quarter, you'll have a smaller bit of fabric. I think fat quarter is like 18 by 24 inches. So you'll just use your fat quarter and iron that out. If you have, sorry, hope my lens doesn't get steamed up there. If you have like a large piece of fabric, you can go ahead and actually rip your fabric. I don't know if any of you do that. I used to work in a fabric store, and that was how we would cut our fabric. We would actually measure it out, cut a little snip of it along the edge, and then we just would tear it right down the middle. So it felt so good when I worked there to do that. Now we will be working from there's on your fabric for our new sewers. You have what's called a selvage edge and a raw edge. The selvage edge is usually the manufactured edge of the fabric. And then your raw edge is where your fabric gets cut. So when you measure fabric, like you're asking for a yard of fabric, that's measured along the selvage edge, and then it's cut. And that's important to know because so you can identify the grain of your fabric. So if you're just getting into sewing, get comfortable with knowing where your selvage edge is and which is your raw edge. Okay, so once you have your pieces all ironed out and nice and ready to go, I'm going to tuck my little pad down here, and we're going to go ahead and cut our fabric down to size. So what we're going to do is take your fabric, and you can match your selvage edges here. So we're just going to match these edges right along here. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and cut out a 10-inch by 10-inch square. So I have my selvage edges matching here. We will cut off the selvage edge because you don't want that selvage edge to be part of your project. So you can just cut that off and then go 10 inches and 10 inches. So let's just grab the mat here. I think I've already trimmed this down a little bit. So both of these edges are my raw edges. So I've removed the selvage edge. Oops, I haven't. Let me turn it around. So I have both the selvage edges together. There's both of my selvage edges. So you can see those two edges are the machine. Sorry, you can't see that. The machine edge right there. So I'm going to start from the other side where I've already cut down. If you have your selvage edge on both ends, don't worry. You can just trim that right off. Now, I do have this self-healing mat to work with, and it's nice because I can use my rotary cutter and cut right with my rotary cutter and my acrylic ruler. If I didn't have my rotary cutter, I would just use you would use your marking pen, one of these types of marking pens here, or your chalk, and you would mark out your 10 inches by 10 inches. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna get this straightened up here. All right, so I'm gonna mark my first 10-inch cut. So I'll cut my first 10-inch here. Now, I do have at least one selvage edge on this side. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra room over here that I can cut off. Let's see if I can pop this up just a little bit higher so we can get a better angle of everything. Is that better, guys? Just do it like that. Okay, so let's get measuring. I'm going to leave myself a little room over on this side here so I can cut that off. And I'll just line, both of these are lined up here. So I'm going to line those up, and I'm just going to take my acrylic ruler, and whatever type of acrylic ruler you have, you can use your rotary cutter. And you just line your acrylic ruler up on the 10 and the 10. You take your rotary cutter, make sure the cover's off, and we're just going to slide down like that. Now you're going to repeat that to make a total of 4 squares. So you'll have your two from your outer fabric and 2 from your lining fabric. So what I'm going to do now is I can just turn my mat, since I have just this small mat, I can turn my mat, and I'm going to cut here. So I'll have 10 inches, 2 sides cut down to 10 inches. Like that. And then you can discard this or hold that if you want to save it for some type of project later. And then I'm going to give myself a nice even on both sides, but this time I'm going to show you how I would do that using my marking pen. So these pens are friction pens, and they the color goes away with water and over time. So you can use those they're great to use on light fabric because you get lots of different colors. And then you have this tailor's chalk, which you can use to mark your line. So I kind of always give myself a little fresh spot there. And then I'll hold my ruler down, whatever kind of ruler you have, and you're going to mark your cutting length. Then you'll just take your scissors, and we're going to go ahead and cut that down. Like that. Okay, so if you're crafting with me, you're going to want to have a total of 4 10 by 10 squares. 2 will be from your lining fabric, and 2 will be for your outer fabric. So let's go ahead and get all those cut out right now. So I have 2 cut here, and then I'm going to set those up there, and we'll do 2 more. We got to move everything to one side. Okay, here we go. So now this one, since I already have a nice clean edge here, I can just line that edge up on the edge of my mat here. So I know that that's going to be fine. If you didn't have, this ruler is not really a good ruler, but you would just take your ruler, measure out 10, put a little mark, take it along that edge, measure out 10, and give yourself a little mark as well. Connect your 2 dots to get your 10 inches. So the beauty of having the mat this way is that you can do it that way. You can just do it real easily with the mat. So keep your eyes out for when something like that becomes available. If you don't have something that allows it to be so easy to trim down. It was fun. Now for this project, we will be sewing with a 1/2 inch seam. So when we cut our interfacing out, we're going to cut our interfacing 9 inches by 9 inches. So once you've got your 2 main fabrics cut out, so now you should have 4 pieces. So you have your pumpkins and your inner piece, and your pumpkins and your inner piece. Now, if your fabric is one directional fabric, meaning like if my pumpkins are a toss, so they go every which way on my pattern, I can turn my material any way and it's facing right side up. If all of your pumpkins were facing in one direction, that would be a directional fabric, and you want to pay attention to that and maybe take a clip and mark the top of your material. So you could just take your wonder clip and say, okay, that's the top of my material. The reason being is that we are going to be creating a top and a bottom for our basket. And if your basket had your shapes in one direction, if you had the top at the bottom, all of your one direction would be upside down. So you want to be aware if your pattern does have one direction or not. Now, if you bought your interfacing by the yard, it would come with a little instruction piece like this that you can use to you can use that to it has your ironing instructions on it. Okay. So now I'm just going to take my interfacing and we're going to make 2 squares that are 9 inches by 9 inches. So again, I'm just going to use my mat here and my rotary cutter, and we'll just line up these top edges, make it easy. I'll cut them together and give myself a nice clean edge. So I'll just push this to the bottom of the mat here. Line that up on the bottom, give myself a clean edge up on the top here. Take a ruler or your friction pen or whatever you're using to mark with. This will get ironed into your material. So if you didn't have like a sewing, a specific pen, you could always use a pencil. And in a pinch, I would grab a pencil and draw my lines. So I can just draw, if you're using your scissors, you can just draw your line like that, or if you're using your rotary cutter, we're just going to go like that. Okay, and then we're going to come down and go 10 inches. So I'm just going to, since I started at the 12, I'm going to go down to the 2. And then I'll just turn it again. And you know what? This needs to be 9 inches, not 10. So we're just going to go here and I'll cut it 9 inches on this spot here. Okay, so this is our first cut. Isn't that exciting? It's good. And then I'll just do one more little cut here and get this to 9 inches. So we'll have 9 inches, 9 inches. Now, the reason these are a little bit smaller is so that you don't get the interfacing caught in the seam. So it gives you an easy seam to make. And this just keeps your seams a little bit cleaner when you have to press them open to not have your interfacing in your seam. So you want to go ahead and make your interfacing 9 inches by 9 inches and your 2 fabrics 10 inches by 10 inches. Remember where your top clip is. Now, the next step, you can trim out of paper if you'd like a pattern piece to use. So you can trim a little piece of cardstock or something that is a 2.5 by 2.5 inch square. And what we're going to do here is we'll just take all of our materials and we're going to line them up so that our corners are all matched up. So we'll have 4 layers here. And then take your interfacing and line your interfacing up with the first corner. So just take it and you'll have everything all matched up onto one corner. So you have your 2 outer fabrics, your 2 inner fabrics, and your 2 interfacings. Now you can take your pattern here, your 2 inch by 2 inch, 2.5 by 2.5 inch square, put that down and draw your line around that and then cut that out. If you don't have access to a little piece of paper to draw that square, you can just use your ruler or your guide, your sewing gauge, and you can mark your 2.5 inches with this. So if I were using just a regular ruler, I would go 2.5 inches and mark that spot. So just mark the end of that ruler there. We'll pop it up here, mark this ruler here, and then just using your straight edge, we're going to measure across. And you won't see in your interfacing, so if you go across a little bit more than you had anticipated, do not worry if those lines cross up here at the top. That just lets you know that that's your crossing point and that's where you want to stop. Once you have those on there, again, I'll take my little clips here and I'll clip all 4 layers together. And then I can use either my rotary cutter or my standard scissors, and we'll just cut this corner out of the design. Now, again, I know it seems kind of counterintuitive because you have all this extra fabric on the side. You have an extra inch on the side and the top. But we're making basically like a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you want to cut your squares 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches on both sides. So I did one side there, and I'm just going to slide this over, and we'll do the same thing on this side. Oops. Keeping your interfacing lined up. So the reason you just have to move your interfacing from one side to the other, but I find having it all stacked up, and my nail keeps catching my interfacing, having it all stacked up like this, it makes it easier. Instead of having to cut each individual layer, you can just do them all at once. And this is always, I think, where my mom comes into my mind, and she would always be like, where are my sewing scissors? This is just a good reminder that you want to keep your sewing scissors in good working condition. And part of that maintenance is having your scissors sharpened. So if you have like a local farmer, if your scissors are dull and you're thinking, my scissors can't cut through all those layers of fabric, you might want to find your local knife sharpener and have them sharpen your scissors. I find mine a lot of times at local farmers market, and they'll just sharpen up your scissors for you, and you will be able to cut through all those layers of fabric. If you aren't, you just would do, cut 2 layers, 2 layers, and 2 layers until you have all of your pieces cut into with those little notches in the corner. And I'm going to turn my mat over because I think the other side is lighter. There we go. That'll show us a little better. So I have my 2 interfacing. I have my 2 lining fabrics and my 2 outer fabrics. Again, this is where if you had a directional fabric, you'd want to make sure that you had your direction facing up, because this is the top edge of our basket. This is the bottom edge of our basket. So once you have your material like that, we're going to come back to our iron and push that out of the way. And we're going to come back with our iron and our interfacing pieces and our interfacing pieces and our fabric. So we're going to take each piece of fabric and add an interfacing piece to it. So you can just turn your fabric right side down, put the right side on your ironing board or your ironing mat, and take your interfacing. Now you have the shiny side of your interfacing and the dull side of your interfacing. So we're going to take the shiny side of our interfacing because that's the side that has the adhesive. And you need to press that down onto your fabric. Now, one thing it says is to cover your fabric with a thick cloth, and then you want to iron it with steam. So sometimes I'll take, if I don't have a thick cloth handy, I'll take fabric and I'll put that over what I'm working with. And I have 2 layers here just to act as the thick cloth. And we'll just pop that right down onto our interfacing. And I like to do a press for about 10 to 15 seconds in each spot. Now, we will be doing a little bit more ironing. So if it doesn't get down 100%, don't ever worry about it, because we will iron our piece again when we press down our top. So this, I just kind of want to make sure I'm holding it in place. So I've got that held in place. Okay, if anybody has any questions about what we're doing, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A so we can have some answers for you. I know it's so fun to work with a new project. If you were interested, oh, okay, I see a question. I can't quite read it. Can you read that question to me?
Sure thing, Kesley. It's saying, why do you put cloth on top to iron?
So I put cloth on top to iron because that's what the instructions tell me to do. I don't always do that if I'm doing it myself. Like that is one step I will skip. But the package instructions do tell you to cover with a thick, damp press cloth, and then you want to iron with wood with your steam, wool with a steam setting. And then as you're pressing, you want to actually do a press. So you're picking up and pushing down about 10 to 15 seconds on your piece. And I find that as I'm moving my iron around my piece, my cloth does get steamy. And then you can check and make sure on the corners that it's adhered down. But different directions, different types of interfacings will have different directions. So I do try and follow the directions, although that is one area that I will skimp on, is following that direction. I'll skimp on that just a little bit. Okay. So we're just going to go like this and press it down. Okay, so we're just pressing. You're moving, you're picking up. I forget sometimes. The reason you don't really want to slide your iron around when you're supposed to be pressing is you could mistakenly move your interfacing on your project. And so when you pull up your sheet there, your damp cloth, you'll find, oh, I've wiggled my interfacing around. So that's really why you want to do the press. And it's a press, pick up, press, pick up, press, pick up. And you're just going to keep moving it around. Now, if you are working on, like if you don't have an ironing board handy around your sewing machine, you could use your, if you have an easy press, you could use the mat for your easy press. A lot of times I will use like a beach towel to press on, or I'll use a bath towel so that I can work on a different surface than just an ironing board. Kind of gives me a little bit
Hi,
more.
Kesley. We have another question. Jody asked, is interfacing ironed onto the wrong side of the fabric?
Yes, interfacing, because this will go on the inside of our project. So the interfacing, you do iron on to the wrong side of your fabric. And so once you've got that, this is, you'll have 4 pieces now. So we start off with 8, we'll have 4. And I think I may have mistakenly told you guys to only cut 2. So you do need to cut 4 pieces of interfacing. I apologize for that. You need 1 for each piece. And so from all your interfacing, you cut out that 2.5 inches on the bottom. Now these, I did prepare my pieces ahead of time. So I'm hoping that they all look the same as we move through. Okay, so that step 2 is to cut all of the corners of our, cut it and then attach our interface is the next step. So once you've attached all your interfacing, the next thing you want to do is use your sewing gauge. And actually, this should be on this one. It's a little bit thicker. Let me just do this. Sorry. Got this. And this. Okay, I'm just going to repress these down because I want to give us that 1/2 inch mark. So I'm going to put that here. So you can, I did these at 1/4 inch, but I told you guys to cut them at 1/2 inch. And the reason I did that was so that we'll have that nice 1/2 inch mark at the top to make the fold over for our seam. There's a couple different ways that you can make these baskets. One is to, if you're using the same material and your material is not directional, you can actually cut your pieces so that you actually cut it like this and you just cut out that inside and you have a 10 by 20 inch piece. I figured some of you may be working with directional fabric, so we would want to make sure we were able to accommodate that. What we're going to do is turn down a 1/2 inch along the top of our fabric. Again, if you're working with directional, that's why we needed to know where the top was. And we'll turn down a 1/2 inch on the top, and that is going to be used to give us a nice clean finish on the top edge as we put them together. So once you've got all your interfacing pressed down, and I like this, it's so nice and hot. I like doing this in the winter time, not so much in the hot weather. I like doing it. Okay, now I've got my 2 inside pieces here with the interfacing on it. And what I need to do is just take my iron and press down half an inch. So you can see at the top, we already have 1/2 inch. It's very easy to find your 1/2 inch. And I can use my sewing gauge to measure that down so that I know I'm pushing it down a 1/2 inch. Now, I don't always like to iron onto the interfacing. So if you want to, you can finger press that 1/2 inch, turn it over and press it again, right like that. And that'll give you your 1/2 inch. So if you do it when your material's nice and hot, that finger pressing is super easy. You could, if you wanted to, grab a little extra piece of fabric and put that between your interfacing and your seam here. So I could just take this fabric, put that down there and press it that way. And then I'm not pressing on directly onto the interfacing. And so again, you just want to get that tip down and press it down like that. So I'll show you another way. And this is my favorite trick. Makes it, I feel kind of lazy doing it like this sometimes. But once you have your first 1/2 inch, you can put that, set that down. Take your second piece and put that over the edge like this. So everything's lined up. Come to the top and pull it down to that edge. So see how the top edge, I just roll it down on that top edge. So I've got my piece that already has the press down, and I did that the wrong, no, I did that the right way. It already has the press on that direction. So I'm just going to take my next piece, line up my bottoms, and then take my top and press that down again. Now again, I can finger press. Yeah.
We have another question from Deborah. Do you cut the interfacing 9 by 9 and cut 2 half squares in 2 corners?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Sure thing, no problem. Do you cut the interfacing 9 by 9 and cut 2 half squares in 2 corners?
Yes, on your interfacing, you'll cut the same 2.5 inch corner on the interfacing as you did on your main fabric. And I know it sounds silly, but it lines up. So you're still going to cut out the same size square because your overall square is smaller. So cutting out the 2.5 does give you that seam allowance in the center there. So again, I'm just going to take my next piece, I'll line up the bottoms of it, and I will roll down my edge. It's like a little bit more than a 1/2 inch there. I don't know why. Make sure I'm lined up. Yep, I sure am. All right, so I'm just going to do that, and I'll press that down there. So again, we'll just press that right down there. I know that whole square trick always threw me for a loop, but I think one thing that I've learned from my sewing is just follow the process. So as much as you think, as much as you are like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't seem right, it should be a smaller square out of the interfacing than it was out of the other one. Just trust the process. That's all I can say. And if you trust your process, it will come out. The directions, I know, like I can't tell you how long it took me to figure out the pajamas, how to sew pajama bottoms and sew my legs together by putting one leg inside the other. It just didn't seem like it would work to me. I thought, how is that possible? But that's how you do it. So, you just gotta follow your step by step, even if it doesn't make sense the first time you do it. It will make sense as you move along. Okay, so this one I'm just showing you guys, you can iron right onto the interfacing, get your 1/2 inch top edge down right on the interfacing if you want to. I want to give you all the right directions and then tell you how I want those directions. So the right directions is not to press directly onto your infusible interfacing, but if you do, it's not going to hurt anything. Okay, so you'll have all your 4 pieces with the top edge pushed, so iron down 1/2 inch from the top. Okay, now there's a little, on a Zoom call, there's a little way to add a little bit of you can give me a thumbs up if you're following along, or a little heart if you're following along as you go. That'd be great. All right, so now that we have our pieces all ironed down, ready to go, our next step is to pin and sew the sides. So for this, you want to take your liner fabric together and your interfacing fabric together. And we're going to pin the sides and the bottom. Now, again, this is where those wonder clips can come in handy for you. You can just clip those, or you can use pins, either way. So I think as a beginner sewer, you want to put pins along the whole thing. You don't need to. You just need 1 or 2 pins, and that will hold it in place. You don't need like 8 pins in this small section. When it comes to the sides, you want to press up what we ironed down. You don't want to sew the side with your top folded down. You want to make sure that that is pressed open. And then we're going to just put a pin in the top, and you can put 1 in the middle if you feel like you need it, and 1 at the bottom. One thing I really love about sewing with interfacing is it's very sturdy. Your material should feel very sturdy in your hand, and it just sort of holds together nicer than your regular material. So, whatever, like however that feels for you. If you are an experienced sewer, you may just put one simple little clip right in the middle, and that's all you need, because as you sew, you're going to watch your side seam. If you're just getting your feet wet with sewing, go ahead and put 3 pins along here, but try not to get yourself in the habit of putting 10 pins along here, because that just, first of all, it takes you a long time to pin up a side, but second of all, you have to take all those pins out. And it'll slow your process down. You think like, oh, I need all those pins because it'll hold everything together. 2 to 3 pins will do the trick for you. So we'll just put those right there. I'll put one in there. I line up my corners. I want to make sure my corners are lined up, and then I just push that in there. Okay. Same thing at the bottom. You just want to line up your corners and you can push in. You don't want to put it right in the corner because you're going to start your stitch here. You can, so you don't want to put it right in the corner. You sort of give yourself a little bit into the corner a little bit like this. Okay. Just go like that. And then again, we'll do the sides. Now, it's okay if you want to line your edge seams up. It's okay if there's a little bit of give in the middle. But you shouldn't have really too much give in the middle. Like you can fudge that in later, but like your side seams should line up very smooth. You shouldn't have like extra fabric on one side than the other. If that's the case, just take it back over to your ruler and measure and make sure, okay, is my whole piece the 10 inches it's supposed to be, or is one 11 inches and one's 10 inches and I'm trying to squish it all together? You can also clip or pin the top center just to sort of remind you to hold those pieces down. Okay, so now that we're all pinned up, I'm going to grab my sewing machine, and if you have any questions on what we've been working through, please go ahead and let us know. It'll take me just a couple seconds. I have my sewing machine here, but it's unplugged, so I just need to plug everything in for me. So if you have a question, or if you are sewing with us tonight, this will give you a good opportunity. If you have a little catch up to do, maybe you're still doing your interfacing. Okay. There we go. All right, now I am using a Singer sewing machine. It does have the computerized, let me change my angle here a little bit for you all, if I can do that. Is that good? Oops. How's that? Nope, that's not good. Hold on. I want to make sure, I make this as easy as you guys can to see. Okay, I think that should do it. So lots of different sewing machines out there. I also use a Bernina machine, and that has a lot of computerized and digital. Really, just if you're getting started, a simple machine like the Singer M3400 is a really good basic sewing machine, and it has the knobs, so you have all the computerized portion to work with it. And
Hi,
I have
Kesley. We have another question from Kathy.
Okay.
If I were able to make a larger basket, would the corner cutouts also be 2.5, or do they need to be made larger as well?
So if I were making a larger basket, I would make my cutouts bigger. The bigger your cutouts, the wider the bottom of your basket is going to be. So the bottom of my basket here is 5 inches. So if you did a 2.5 inch square, the bottom of your basket would be 5 inches, and it just would maybe be more of a rectangle shape. But if I'm doing a bigger basket or a smaller basket, like my little, this little basket, my tools basket, I did my squares. I think this was a rectangle piece, and then I did my squares 2 inches. Okay, now I have my brown thread in here, so I want to change it out and put black in. Ready to go grab it. Guys, I wanted to show, I grabbed my spool and thread. I wanted to show you all how to thread your sewing machine if you're a beginner. If you're experienced, you are a pro at this. You'll have your thread and you want to put it on your top bobbin so that it comes over. Sorry, so that it comes over like this. And then this way it'll just pull right off. So some of them are your bobbins will be sitting upright like this. So you'll have your thread coming off the back. So keep that in mind. You want your thread coming off the back. And then you can follow the numbers on your sewing machine. So I'm just going to go 1 to 2, and then I bring it down. Whoop. I go 1 to 2, and then I bring it down, and then we go down and up to 4. You do want your needle, you want this kind of up so you can easily get that little thing, that little bobbin there. So that's going to go around there. And then when you come down, there'll be a little piece on your needle here that you have to get your thread behind. And then you can thread it into the needle here. Which this machine has an automatic feeder, which I love. But I'm a little bit stubborn and I keep going like, oh, my eyesight's not getting bad until I can't thread a needle. I don't need reading glasses until I can't thread my needle. But I do like that automatic threader because it really does make it easier. Okay, so there's my thread. Now for your bobbin, when you put your bobbin in, have your bobbin make a P. So this is your thread is the stem and it comes up and around your bobbin. So it forms the letter P. And then on this machine, it just drops in and I catch it. There's a little latch there that you have to catch. And then I just put my cover back on. And every machine, like functionally, it can appear a little bit different, but it does the same, it does the same mechanism. So whenever you're putting your bobbin thread in, you want it to be in that P form. And then you just hold your needle thread and you go down and up, and we're going to grab our bobbin thread. So now I have both my bobbin thread and my top thread together. And I'm just going to set those off to the side. Now, one thing when you're sewing, I like to hold onto my threads as I start. And the reason I do that is so that my bobbin thread sometimes can nest in my other machine. So I like to, it's just habit. I hold those as I start. Now, you'll notice that you have different markings on the plate of a 1/2 inch seam, a 1/4 inch seam. So we're going to do a 1/2 inch seam, which my marking is right here. So I'm just going to put that down and we'll do a 1/2 inch seam. So on this side, I'm going to follow, I think I'm going to follow that marking there. Okay. On this machine, because we're going to be folding down the top, you don't have to backstitch on this project. A lot of times I like to do a backstitch, and other projects I do a backstitch, but on this one we don't need a backstitch. You're going to do a 1/2 inch seam, and we're just going to go ahead and run down the side of our project. Now you can do a smaller seam if you wanted to. You could do a 1/4 inch seam. A 1/2 inch seam is a nice, easy one to work with. So I like to do it that way. And did you notice I used my sewing gauge to measure my 1/2 inch seam? Now, one thing, this is another little trick. If your sewing machine does do that nesting thing with your bobbin, one way to stop that from happening is to continuously sew. So once you've sewn one piece, grab your other set, mark your 1/2 inch, and you can continue sewing. So I see a question about cutting the corners. You cut the 2.5-inch corner on both the interfacing and your fabric. So you'll do that on both pieces, and it's the same size, because you see it does come in a little bit shorter, like you have a seam allowance there on the side of your project. So you do cut that 2.5-inch square on both sides. Now I'm just going to come back here to my first piece, and I'm going to trim the extra threads off. And keeping that one on my machine, you can lift up your presser foot, pull it, advance it a little bit, and then come back to your next piece. We'll put down that presser foot, take out my first pin. Now, if you are nervous about your seams lining up, your edges lining up, and everything like that, maybe this is a beginner project for you, you can always pause and adjust your seam. If you put your needle down in the down position, you can move your material around with a little bit around with the needle down. That sort of holds your material in place. And I don't think for this project we need to do that too much. So we've done a side and the bottom. So you're just going to repeat this. We're going to repeat this throughout. There we go. Sorry, my little presser foot was bouncing around on me. Okay, so there we go. Another 1/2 inch seam here. And what I like to recommend as you're beginning to sew, or if you're starting, don't start and stop on your seams. Just keep going. My kids, when they would learn how to sew, they'd want to like really go slow as they sewed a seam, and they'd start and they'd stop and they'd start and they'd stop. And I just say, like, just put your foot on the gas and go. So just put your foot on your pedal and go ahead and sew. You've got it pinned, so it's going to sew straight. You can follow your guide. And if it's a little off or anything like that, this project is super forgiving. So it's not going to affect your final project. Okay, so just put your pedal to the metal and go. Don't worry about it. Don't overthink it. Sewing is supposed to be fun. And this is not a blouse that you're going to wear or anything like that. This is just a fun little home decor item. So if your seam is a little crooked, this is a great way to learn how to hold your fabric in place and get your seam to go straight. But if it goes wonky, it's okay. So if you have a beginner sewer at home, this is a very fun, easy project for them to start with. Now, again, I'm just going to grab my ends of my thread and make sure that my threads stay out. So I'll be ready to go on my next step. So once you have everything sewn together, you want to make sure you have those sides up. You'll have your 4 pieces. We're going to come in and go ahead and trim any of your extra threads that might be. Don't worry about the threads on the material, but your sewing threads, you want to trim those down. And again, that's why I love these little scissors, because they just make it so easy to grab those threads and trim them off. So I've got one is nice. I'm going to get a little higher there. Okay, so we're just going to trim off both of these. And speaking of beginner sewers or having your kids sew with you, I find sewing is a great way if you have a student struggling with geometry. Working on a sewing project really can help reinforce an actual purpose of when you would use your geometry and your shapes and your measurements. So I think sewing is a great learning tool for somebody who's struggling with geometry or fractions. Both of those are great to grab somebody and get them to start sewing. Now, once we've done this, stitched down our sides, we don't have to trim anything, but we do want to press open our seams. So I have a little piece of wood here that my son and I were using to press open seams because sometimes it's hard to get a seam like this to press open without burning your fingers, right? Because you want to have that open. So let's pull my camera back a little bit and I'll show you, there we go, how I'm going to press open these seams. So I'll just grab my pad. Oh, grab my ironing pad. Here it is. Now, if you have a sleeve, like a arm, you could put that inside here and press it open. It's a little bit tricky to do it because you can't just push it down. Oh, sorry. You can't just push it down. You kind of need to have an easy way to get in there and press that down. So sometimes you can just finger press it. If your iron is a little bit forgiving and you're willing to go on the edge, you can just kind of take it and go on your fingers and press it. But I do not recommend that for a beginner because especially not if for kids, you don't want to burn yourself. So that's a very dangerous, a very dangerous expedition there. But what I do recommend, do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Are these bags washable?
They are, yes. All the materials we're using can go right into your washing machine. So what I recommend to do your seams a little easier is grab a piece of wood if you have like a little leftover piece of wood to use, and you can put that inside your bag and open up that seam and press on that wood and press your seam open using that wood. So it gives you like a little very mini ironing board there. And we're just going to press open all of our seams.
We have another question. Can you use Cricut Mini for ironing?
Can you use your mini press?
Yes, ma'am. The Cricut Mini.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can use the Cricut Mini for ironing out your seams. That is always a good one to have handy. You can also, I don't really recommend that for when you're putting your interfacing on because that's a little bit, it's not going to give you the steam you need and get hot enough for the interfacing. But if that's all that you have handy, then go ahead and use that, definitely. This is actually a bookend that I'm using to press my seams open on. So we're going to make sure all three of our seams are open. And this is a good opportunity to just reinforce that top rollover about 1/2 inch. So just kind of press that back down into place and make sure that that is nice held on and you've got your seams open. Now, the next step, once you've pressed all your seams, we'll talk about the next step as I'm pressing. We're going to be adding the dart to the bottom of the bag. And what your dart does, a dart in a garment, is where you take fabric and you join it together to make your garment, to give your garment fit on your body. So like a lot of times in women's clothing, you might find a dart along your chest area to flatter and form the dress onto your body. It also maybe you may have darts in your pants to press and form along your body. So what we're going to be doing is the same process you would do in a garment. So this is a great project to introduce how to make a dart. And we're just doing it on our little bag here. So if you're ironing along with me, keep ironing till you get all of your seams pressed open. Sorry. Get all your seams pressed open here. And I try and keep water next to my workstation so I can add the steam onto my iron. Now, once you have your seams pressed, what we're going to do is we're going to join the seams together. So your bottom of your bag will take the bottom seam here, and you want to line it up with the bottom side seam. So you just find your seams, you line those up, and you pin it. So this time I'm going to use my Wonder clips so you can see how those work. So we're just going to pin that right there. and it's forming the bottom of your bag. So as you can see here, this is my side seam. This is the bottom seam here. So we're sewing this seam now, okay? And you just bring your bottom seam where you got it pressed open, and the pressing open is really important because it gives you a nice crisp seam on the edge, and it helps to find your seams here and match it up with your seam on the other side. So you have a seam on one side and you match those seams together. We'll just wonder clip that there, and we're just going to sew right along there with our 1/2 inch seam allowance. And you want to do that for both the lining piece and your outer fabric. We're just going to sew that right there. Okay, so we'll just grab that one, match those seams up, and clip it. Now, if you're using pins, really all you need are is 1 to 2 pins in the center. If you feel like, you're like, oh, I don't know, that just doesn't seem like enough there. Just pin 1 on each end and then 1 in the middle. So I just, I've seen so many beginners put pins like every 1/2 inch, and I'm always like, no, that you don't need that many pins. You really just need 1 or 2. But you have to do what makes you feel comfortable. So if you're thinking, oh no, I need to have more than that to work, then do what you need to do and ignore that suggestion. Okay, so we've got all 4 sides of our bag is pinned together. So pinned, 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 and pinned. And we're just gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna sew that 1/2 inch seam along each of those lines. So let me grab my machine again, a little closer. And I just want to make sure that my seam is going to lay down and put that in. Now you will be up higher on your material than you think you need to be, but that's what you want to do. You want to have it at your 1/2 inch mark. And now here's where you can do the back and forth if you want to back stitch. So we're just going to push the button, and that brings your needle and back stitches, and then you bring it forward. I don't really find that necessary, again, because this is going to be inside your bag, so you're not going to see it. So you don't feel like you have to do that back stitch. And if you're stitching with the material, with the pieces together, then it will really close up that seam for you. So see, I can remove that pin kind of before we get to sewing. And I just want to make sure that my seam stays open. And again, this is, you don't stress about if you have exactly 1/2 inch seam, if it's straight, it'll all work out in the end. And I want to think this is such a forgiving project. So I really like this project for that reason. Okay, so we're going to again line it up here on your plate. That's called your plate, and then just start sewing. Go the speed that you're comfortable. If you're comfortable going a little faster, go for it. If you want to make sure that you're doing it, getting a nice straight line, you can do that. Okay, so I've got one more side over here to stitch. All right, now remember, I am kind of ganging up my my stitches because I don't want my bobbin thread to bunch up. And this machine is really good. It doesn't really do that on this machine. I have just a very old, my other machine is older, so that's the one I learned on. And it's just an older machine, so it does that every now and then. It bunches up my bobbin. It's actually kind of a common problem. Sometimes you just have to clean out your bobbin. Maybe your bobbin was thread, your bobbin thread might be put on wrong or something like that. Okay, so now again, we're just going to come in and clip all your little threads. And you can have a little hanging off, like don't feel like, oh, I've got to be perfect and have it all clipped off. You can have a little bit hanging there where you need to. Okay, but we're just going to clip that off of all 4 sides on each of our bags. And guys, we're almost done. If you can believe it, we are almost done. Now, the outer fabric, we're going to turn the outer one inside out. So you're just going to reach in I like to put my fingers on the corners. If you want to, you can press this seam open, but it still is, it's sewn there. So it's kind of hard to get in that corner. You just be kind of pressing this middle part open. So you can do that. But I just take my thumbs and I put my thumbs in the corners, and with my pointer fingers, I hold that and I'll turn it and give it a nice sharp push on each side. So I'll do the same thing over here. For each corner, I want to make sure I give it a nice sharp push. Okay, so there is the outside bag. Look at how cute is this. Okay. There we go. Isn't that fun? Now, I see somebody said they sewed the bottom of the bag wrong, and they just need me to show you how to do that again. I have another, I'll show you again how I did that, because that is a little tricky. So if you want to watch again, before I move on to the next step, I will do that again for you. What we're doing is we're sewing the dart into our project. So you're just going to take these bottoms and your side seam. You want to match that up with the bottom. So you're just going to match those right up on there and line those up just like that. Okay. And then you just sew that closed. So you have your squares that we cut out. You have our squares that we cut out, and you're just going to kind of open those, give it a nice mouth, waka, waka, waka. Match your bottom seam to the side seam here, and then you're just going to sew this seam shut. So you'll just sew that right there. Okay. Once you have that sewn, we're going to turn the outer bag to the right side so we can see it again. We're going to see our fabric, and if you need to come back in, if you need to, like if your 1/2 inch is kind of popping up on you, we can go back in and press that down again. And I turned this one inside out. Your inner fabric, you want to keep that right side. Outside, inside out. Okay, sorry about that. So we're going to have the outer fabric will be right side, the inner fabric will be inside. Now, if you want to watch, what we're going to do is we're going to line up our seams, because we have our 2 sewn seams on the side here, and inside the bag you have your 2 sewn seams on the side. Okay, so we're just going to take our bag liner and put it inside our bag, and you can just kind of squish it in like that. And then you want to find your seam on the inside liner and match that up with the seam on the outside of your bag. So I've got my outside seam right here, and if I follow my finger over, it matches up on the inside seam. And you can pin this or you can clip it, whichever you're comfortable with. Now this, I'll probably put a couple more pins around it, because you may have to massage it a little bit if you have a little bit of extra fabric to get it to all line up. But first we're going to start off on our 2 side seams. So you have my outer seam and my inner seam. We're going to start off with those and match those together like this. Okay, so I've got those matching, and I'm going to clip those. Then from there, this is whenever you're doing like a waistband or anything like this, you do your 2 side seams, and then you kind of find the middle again, and we'll pin here. Now you may have a little bit of, it may bump a little bit here, but you can stretch that out as you sew it and make sure it's nice and flat. So right now, if you look at this side, and if you can see, it's like a little bumpy, but I'm going to just find the center of this and pin the center together. And you can just, if you need to, when you sew it, you just kind of give it a little bit of a stretch between this pin and this pin, and help it go flat. If you feel like you need to, at this point, throw in an extra pin, go ahead and do that. Like throw in that extra pin, and you can work your magic on the machine. Okay. I do like to kind of have one side a little bit over on the other. Let's see, there we go, looking good. Okay, that looks great. So now again, we're back to our sewing machine. On your sewing machine, you may want to pull off this little piece here. And so that you can have just your arm and sew on just your arms. Let me get my camera at a little bit of a down angle here. So I took this piece off. Now I'm just going to do a top stitch. So when you do a top stitch, you're really just stitching the very top edge of your bag. On your presser foot, you can pick a portion of a side of your presser foot. I'll pick this right side here and I'll line my fabric up along my presser foot. And so when I put it down, you'll see, let me just get my threads out of the way here. When I put this down and I put my presser foot down, you'll see the edge of my presser foot, my fabric is lined up with that edge. And it's a little bit hard to see here, but my presser foot edge is right here and my fabric edge is right here. So as I stitch, I'm just going to have that top stitch. Now, sometimes when you top stitch, you may want to go make your stitch a little longer. That gives a little bit more of a decoration. So if you want to extend your stitch, you can on your top stitch. But for something like this, I'll just do it like a regular stitch as I'm going along. And I know we're a little bit over our time, guys. I apologize. This class, don't forget, is being recorded, and you can watch the recording on the Michael's YouTube channel, as well as the maker place I have on my shop, Kesley 365. I put the instructions with pictures. So if you wanted to, you could print out your instructions with step-by-step pictures as I go along. So if you need a more of a resource, you have that as an option too. So I'm just moving it along. I'm feeling that it's going flat. Now, when I get to this last little piece here, my threads are still kind of sticking out. What I like to do to finish off something like a top stitch, I don't want to have to clip my threads and have my threads showing. So what I'll do is I'll take my top thread and I'll give it a little tug. And what that does is it brings up my bobbin thread. And then with my, what's this called? With this tool, I'll just grab that bobbin thread. See, when I pull on this loop, my bobbin thread starts to come up. And then I can just clip that using my seam ripper. Now I don't have any thread there to worry about, and I'll just keep sewing. I'll overlap it a little bit, and then I will pull it out, give it a little clip. And again, let me show you how I did that with my bobbin thread. So you have your bobbin thread should be inside your bag. I don't know if you guys can see that. My bobbin thread's inside my bag and my top thread's outside. I just give this top thread a little pull and it brings up my bobbin thread. So then I can just grab my bobbin thread a little bit and pull that to one side and then clip it from there. A lot of times your threads are polyester. So if you found like you had a lot of thread there or something, you could always burn it with a lighter. Oh, okay. I will show you guys. I will step over to my computer here in a minute and show you all where you can get the instructions. So the last step of this is to fold down your edge. So look at this, your edge just folds right down. And now you have a cute little basket. Okay, I can go back. Do you want to go back to the front camera real quick? Thank you. All right.
To confirm with the project handout, would that be the printout they're referring to?
Yeah, I'll step over to my computer and show if I can share my screen and show people where to find that.
Sure thing. And I'll drop the link as well, just in case.
Oh, do you have the link to it?
Yes, ma'am.
You're so good. Thank you. So
Thank you.
there's your basket, and like it's so fun. You can do so many cute things with it, like a little planter. You can add if you have a craft cutter, you can cut out names or whatever you're going to put in your basket. If it's like an everyday basket, I chose a seasonal fabric, but I just think this is so fun to do as an everyday basket. And if you have like kitchen utensils or snacks or like this, sits in your car for snacks or something like that. You can make little smaller baskets. So this one, I want to say this fabric was like 6 inches maybe, or 5 inches by about 9 inches. So it was a rectangle fabric. So a square fabric will give you a square bag. A rectangle fabric will give you a rectangle bag. And if you have you can do anything with these. You could, I think, embroider on here if you have an embroidery machine. If you have an embroidery machine, you can embroider right on here. If you have the Glowforge, like to do little wooden indicators of what is in here. So if this is going to hold all my sewing trinkets, I might put, sewing supplies, like my basic sewing supplies could go right in here. So those are some different ideas. Go with try bigger fabrics. Cut a 15-inch square, and I would just increase, depending on the size you're making, I would increase your corner cut a little bit on each side. So we did a 10-inch basket and we did a 2.5-inch square. So that was about a quarter of the overall 10 by 10. So if you're going to do 15 inches or 16 inches, let's do an even number. You're going to do 16 inches. You might do your corner a 4-inch corner. So to get just a bigger size. So you just can keep increasing your square, and then increasing your overall square, and your little corner square increases with it. And then you can make nesting baskets. So they can go one inside the other. All right, let me step closer to my computer, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get real close for you guys. And I'll share my screen and show you, I think, if I'm on, let's see, if I go here, let me share my screen. So when you go to the Michaels website, let me see if I have it up somewhere. I don't. All right, let's go here. I don't know, this is what was mentioned at the beginning of class was the maker place. So when you go to the maker place, you can see that there are, you can purchase materials, you can purchase handmade items, and things like that. But there's also this great how-to section. So let me see if I can find, oh, here, where'd it go? This right here, it says how-tos. So click on the how-tos. And then if you can search for, our class today was square to a basket, or you can come in here. Now the sewing things are under fiber and needle art. And then if you just scroll down, you'll see lots of crocheting knitting projects. Here's the square to storage basket right here. When you click on that, it has all of your step-by-step instructions with pictures. And you can, if you need materials, I've got the materials all listed out in the side here of what the different materials that I used. And if you want to print this, you just go right up here and you say print. And then that's how you can print off your instructions. All right. So thank you guys. And I do apologize for going over a little bit in our time today, but I do appreciate everybody being here. And we have one last poll question for you. You guys don't mind answering that? And don't forget, this is available. This class is available to you tomorrow. I think tomorrow afternoon, give them about 24 hours to get it converted over, but this will be available for you. And I can't read those. I'm too far away. Do you mind reading those out loud?
Sure thing. The last poll will be, after this class, how do you feel about approaching the square to basket project? Ready to make a batch for gifts, excited to get started, or I'll wait for the recording to start.
Awesome. All right, guys. Yeah, and the great thing about the recording is you can start and stop it as you go along. So I do appreciate you being here. This was my first sewing class to teach with Michaels. So I'm very excited to be here, and I'll get better with my camera angles. We do have a class next week. I think it's like on Monday or Tuesday. The 11th, I think, is the date. And we're going to be making a bowl koozie. So this is a little, we'll be using a different type of interfacing, a different type of not batting. We'll be using batting for this, and we'll have to do some turning around and things like that. But this is a great, as we're getting into cooler weather, to make a little boat cozy to hold your chili or something like that. So I hope some of you will sign up for that free class and join us then. So thanks everyone for being here. I do appreciate it. Have a great night.